Bow, 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 bow. Guess the theme tune. If you can guess the theme tune, if you get that, you will award yourself some nostalgia credits that you can spend here at Performance Check. I'll say later on what the theme tune was. Hello, my name is Rob, and I am live on the channel Performance Check, and I've gone live here. Basically, I've just realised, have I put this on private? Is it private? I better check. Oh no. Let me see. I can't remember if I made it public. No, it's public. It's public. What am I on about? I do apologize. I just wanted to check to see that I was actually, here. So I wanted to go live on YouTube rather than the usual Facebook because essentially I've been having, and some people know this, I've been having a little trouble with my internet connection, it playing up a little bit throughout the Lawkeepers games that I run and stuff, and that ain't cool. So yeah, I have decided to go live here just to see how it goes, and that means I then have a lengthy or slightly lengthy bit of content on my channel that I can watch back and see if there's any problems, because I've done lots of different tests, lots of different things to try and change this. But anyway, the main reason I'm here is to talk about Deus Ex Machina and its troubles and its presence in role-playing games and how it can affect role-playing games for good or ill. Now, generally speaking, I think it's for ill, and I will go into why later. And I think it's probably self-explanatory why it is for ill. But for those of you who don't know, Deus Ex Machina, I believe, translates as the hand of God. I'm sure most of you watching this already know this, but just in case, it is essentially within a story where a particular solution or problem is solved in a convoluted way that was never foreshadowed or ever built up to, or its presence, the solution's presence, was never apparent until it happens. So say, for instance, we are in a game of D&D, and let me see, there is a vast dragon that is bearing down upon the players. This event has been foreshadowed. The players have had dreams where they've seen this vast dragon just envelop them with flames. And then at the last second, boom, an angel drops out of the sky and kills the dragon. So I suppose with it being an angel, maybe literally a hand of God, but you get the point. And there's never ever been like a point where the angel was foreshadowed. And I think that's probably the key. I can see Kyle Swanson's in the chat. Hey, man, how's it going? Good to see you. He says, hey, Rob. And he says, actually translates as God from the machine, meaning good fortune. Turn of events was completely fabricated from no previous hints or anything. Thank you very much. So there we go then. God from the machine. So turn of events fabricated from no previous hints. Is that bad storytelling? Generally speaking, I think it is. You'll see it occasionally in Doctor Who. There'll be a problem that needs to be solved. And this, I'm talking about bad episodes of Doctor Who. And then all of a sudden, because the doctor just thinks of something that can solve the problem at the very end of the episode, like without ever having mentioned anything to do with that solution, and then it just happens. But that happens in an awful lot of stuff. And I was wondering if there was any chance that this could be a good thing. And I don't think there is. I honestly don't think there is. And yeah, to be honest, I haven't put an awful lot of thought into it. I wanted to go live and sort of just talk through it and see what happens. Bit of a puff, bit of a sip. I mean, like I say, this is mainly for me to riff and see if the quality of this is okay. In fact, Kyle in the chat, you can tell me what the quality's like so far, if my voice is dipping or if the connection's a bit there all over the shop. So I think one of the main examples, and I'm not going to go into this in too much depth because later on, me and Lloyd are going to be doing a hangout where we're going to talk about this a bit more. But the one point that I want to make that is often brought up as a case of Deus Ex in a popular fantasy setting is that of the eagles in The Lord of the Rings. Now, a lot of people would say that that is Deus Ex Machina. They're at the top of the Mount Doom. Like the ring's been destroyed. The whole place is just exploding around them. Sauron has been vanquished, but it looks like all hope is lost. And all of a sudden, as I'm sure you're familiar with, the eagles soar out the sky, pluck Frodo and Sam off Mount Doom, and they fly away with them to safety. Now, obviously, the eagles hadn't been involved much with the conflict of the War of the Ring until the point that they were needed to. They needed to get involved for the story. But they had been foreshadowed, and it has been foreshadowed in the works of Tolkien before that that's sort of their thing. That's what they do. Every now and then, the eagles soar out of the sky, and they help people. They help the dwarves in the forest, in The Hobbit. And in the movie, I'm not sure if that happens in the book, actually, but definitely in the movie, Gandalf jumps off the top of Isengard, and the eagle sweeps away with him on his back. So does that count? You know, like a certain force in the game only decides to become useful when they're needed, even though it's been hinted at, like, and it's been shown to happen before. Like, does that count? So, say, for instance, your players are in a campaign and something very similar happens. They have, shall we say, I don't know, there is a powerful character, a mysterious wizard that walks about in a long black cloak or whatever. And every now and then, this mysterious, powerful wizard shows up when he is least expected and gets the player characters out of a trap that, say, the main villain has placed for them. Okay. Now, if you've done it once before, would it then be Deus Ex Machina for him to then do it again? You know, is that not in itself foreshadowing because it's happened before? And if it happens the first time, well, why would they know? Like, why would you tell the players, oh, there is a certain individual that will eventually help you at some point in my setting? You know, you're not going to say that, are you? So is that Deus Ex Machina? This is what I mean. It's different in role-playing games, I think, as well, because unlike normal storytelling, you have less information. You're an active participant in the story. You are a character experiencing rather than hearing about characters in a story. And that's what I think is the crux of the issue. And I think that is something that would be interesting to look into. And it's something that, dare I say it, is slightly apparent in my campaign, The Lawkeepers. Because legends and stories are at the forefront of the narrative and the general themes of the campaign. And there have been times where the characters have been taken out of dangerous situations by a particular power that is in their grasp, a particular entity. The Grimoire has plucked them from danger before. But they've been told that he can do that, and sometimes he can do it. Sometimes. I've been very clear that it uses a lot of his energy to do it, but there's no hard and fast rule as to when he can do it. I only really allow it to happen when it feels right. And for the next session that's happening in the Lawkeepers, I won't go into it right now. For those of you interested in watching the next episode of the Lawkeepers, it will be recorded live on the 2nd of September. Past midnight in the UK time, probably around 7, 8 EDT, I reckon. It's probably going to be a bit later this time, I think. But in that, they've been put into a situation where it doesn't look good. And in that situation, I've told them that Grimm can't feel his connection to the telling, the force that gives him his power. So that means that they aren't going to be able to just be plucked from the dangerous situation. They're going to have to find a way out of it. And I think that's key. As long as you keep informing the viewer, or in case of just normal literature or narrative, you keep informing the audience of this, then I think it's okay. But I think if it keeps if something happens and there's just no explanation whatsoever, obviously in this, that's Deus Ex Machina. But I want to know if there is a case, and I would love to know from you listeners, viewers, sorry, a case where someone just showing up out of the blue and helping people that they've never met, that they've never heard of, is okay. Is that okay? I think in some cases it could be for a role-playing game. You know, it's tricky because then if you think about it, even if it was a novel, if it happened and then it was explained why it happened, then, you know, that's okay. But explaining it after the fact, it's tricky. It's very tricky. I find myself wondering early about this in this stream, which is why this isn't going to be a particularly long stream. Like I said at the very beginning, this is only going to be a short one just so I can see how my connection is, how my sound is, and I'm going to go back and watch it and see what it's like. M6tail Shadow has jumped into the chat. Hey, how's it going? And says, some cases, yeah, especially early on. Ah, is that the key then? Is that the crux of the matter? If it happens at the very end, then is that the problem? But then why is that the problem? You know, like, if it could have happened at any time, then why not? Is it because it solves the climax of the story? It solves the problem? It dissipates the tension because something happens that was beyond... I suppose that's what it is, actually. I suppose it's less of the fact of the effect on the narrative and the story, and more of the fact that it's robbing the main focus of the story, which is the characters, of that solution. Is that what it is, maybe? Food for thought, isn't it? Food for thought, indeed. I think the difference for Deus Ex in literature and film and TV to it in role-playing games is pretty interesting. M6tail Shadow says yes. Well, there you go. Problem solved, guys. I'm glad we had this discussion. No, that's cool. I think that might be it, actually. I think it's the robbing of agency, maybe. But no, but it isn't robbing of agency. It just happens, you know, that it's not stopping player characters from doing anything in particular. It's not stopping them from making any decisions, nor is it stopping any of your NPCs from making any decisions. There's an outside NPC, okay, might have history with the villain that's put the players in the trap in the first place. Might have history, might not. Might just have a magical item that tells him that there is a powerful evil being that's fucking around with some people north of my location. I'm using my ball of scrying and I've seen this happen. I'm going to go and stop them. Because D&D is set in a magical world, there is, you know, there's every likelihood that someone could be, like, eavesdropping or looking in on this situation and thinking, oh, I better go and help them. Teleport. Boom. I'm in the situation. Hey, guys, I'm going to help you. Teleport. Boom. I'm out. You know? Like, The rules of D&D and the magical items and a lot of the lore that's set up enables things like that to happen. So is it bad to include that in a game, despite the fact that everything that you need for that to occur does technically exist in at least vanilla D&D? You know? It's there. Like, is there not the fact that there is content within the game? Because let's not forget that no matter how much of a story you want to tell, at the end of the day, this is a game. You do not decide all the outcomes. Is there the fact that all the ingredients are there for it to happen in the game, not in itself stopping it from being a Deus Ex situation, because there are feasible reasons for it happening? Six-Tailed Shadow then says, that would make sense, especially when the big bad has multiple resistances against it. That would make sense, especially when the big bad has multiple resistances against it. Resistances against what? You mean you mean scrying? Well, maybe they don't. This is the problem. This is another thing about D&D, especially an interesting thing when it comes to putting things up against players in particular, is that as a DM, you cannot prepare for everything. You just can't. Like, it's a fool's errand to try and prepare for everything that player characters can do. So you can't prepare for every spell. Like, you can't. Like, if I put a villain on the table and said, off you go, and then they said, oh, well, character says I want to scry on that villain. If I haven't thought, oh yeah, he's got resistance to scrying or whatever, I'm not going to turn around and say he's got resistance to scrying. No, that was a good idea, and you've thought of something that I haven't thought of. I'm going to reward you for that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why would they? Why would you? But then again, if you're in a world where scrying exists, maybe you would have something that, like, oh man, it's an endless situation that we have in front of us here. Carl Swanson then says, there definitely is something to be said about the way it happens and the circumstances. It can certainly be unsatisfying if suddenly a solution to all the problems appears, but I think certainly... Sorry, I thought you were going to carry on then, but I think certainly. Okay. It can be done well. Sorry. Yeah, I think so. It's tricky because it then goes back into what do you allow in your world? What do you allow to be present? It goes back into the idea of your setting. Like, is magic a powerful enough force in your world to allow such a thing to happen? You don't see that happening in Iskloth, for example. Like, that isn't like the ability for a Deus Ex to happen in Iskloth, I think, magically at least, is obviously much more difficult because magic is pretty rare in Iskloth. Like, but like if you look at Erenoth, for example, where there is much more magic, like it could be, but I don't know. Six-Tailed Shadow says, I mean multiple groups fighting it. But the villain, you mean? I'm sorry. Maybe I'm being really slow today. I don't know. Yeah. Carson says, perhaps something came and saved you. Yes, but now you owe them. Turn the Deus Ex into a hook for the final adventure if it happens at the end. Yeah, well, absolutely. And it might not, Deus Ex doesn't have to happen at the end, but I was just using that as an example. But yeah, absolutely. Like, the act of like saving people absolutely is a hook in itself. You're quite right. Perhaps they owe them. Perhaps they did it because they want the player characters to help them in a plight against another threat or against that same threat, but they wanted to rescue them from that villain so they can then attack them in a better, cleverer way, I guess what it comes down to is the boundaries that you put in your world, as well as what you have foreshadowed to be possible in your world. Because if you haven't said that something is possible, if you haven't said in your game scrying doesn't exist, then that could happen and someone could see into like somehow. But then why would they know to be scrying on that location? I get if they're completely unconnected to the story, then yeah, totally. Like, that's when it starts getting weird. And yeah, it's really interesting. I'm not looking for a solution for this just yet because, as I mentioned at the top of this stream, um, I will be going live with Lloyd later on, probably in about an hour, I think, maybe a bit more. And we're going to talk about this and we're going to try and solve it because Lloyd, I know, has some definite things that he wants to talk about at Deus Ex. And we're not just going to be talking about that, though, as well. Me and Lloyd lately have got into this habit where we like to just jump on a hangout and we talk about a whole bunch of things and people can jump in and listen. So if you're watching this, then maybe hop over to, I don't know whose channel we're going to do it on. I think it was on mine last time, so we'll probably do it on Lloyd's channel, the RDM. If not, I'll probably put something up and you'll see it on my channel. But we're going to have like a big old general role-playing game discussion where Deus Ex Machina will be a definite subject that we will chat about. So thank you ever so much for watching. I hope that the connection and my sound has been okay. Like I keep saying, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to go live here rather than the Facebook group. Yeah, so thank you ever so much for watching. If you like this, give it a like. If you want to see more like it, then give me a subscribe or not. We're all friends here, or are we? Take it easy, and I hope that all of your performances are up to standard. Oh, and don't forget, if you know this theme tune, I'll do it one more time. Put it in the comments, and you'll get some nostalgia mega points from me. Ready? One more time. Boom, 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 boom. Take it easy.